A billionaire's autistic son was born paralyzed, a condition doctors said would never improve. For years, specialists tried everything, but the boy remained silent and unable to move. His father, one of the richest men in the world, spared no effort. He built therapy rooms, hired world-class doctors, and spent millions looking for answers. Nothing worked. Then a new maid was hired. She wasn't a nurse, she wasn't a doctor, just someone with patience and attention. But within weeks, she noticed something no one else had. A small reaction, a sound, a smile. She kept observing, and slowly, piece by piece, uncovered the real reason behind the boy's condition. What she discovered shocked everyone, and would change the boy's life forever. Richard Wakefield's sprawling mansion loomed like a shadowed fortress amid manicured gardens, its marble halls echoing with an oppressive quiet that pressed against the walls. Once a titan of global business, gracing covers of Forbes and Fortune with his steely gaze and ruthless acumen, Richard now inhabited this gilded cage at 43, retreating from the world's clamor into isolation. The opulent chandeliers cast fractured light across Persian rugs and crystal decanters, yet the air hung heavy with absence. No children's laughter pierced the silence, no footsteps hurried with purpose. His fortune, amassed through cutthroat mergers and sleepless nights, meant nothing now. It bought solitude, not solace. His wife gone, taken by illness years prior, Richard poured every ounce of his iron will into his 6-year-old son Noah. Diagnosed with autism, confined to a wheelchair, and bearing the features of Down syndrome, Noah existed in a world of profound stillness. Richard had transformed wings of the mansion into state-of-the-art therapy suites, vibrant walls lined with sensory panels, floors scattered with adaptive toys, machines humming softly with promises of breakthroughs. Specialists rotated through like ghosts, neurologists with clipboards, speech pathologists with flashcards, occupational therapists wielding weighted vests. Millions vanished into experimental protocols, international consultations, custom equipment shipped from Zurich and Tokyo. Yet Noah's eyes remained distant, his lips sealed, his body a fragile vessel adrift in inertia. Dawn broke with ritual precision in the mansion's vast kitchen, sunlight filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows onto polished granite counters. Richard rose before the birds, his broad shoulders slumped under invisible weight, and wheeled Noah to the long oak table. He prepared breakfast himself, oatmeal swirled with fresh berries, sliced bananas arranged in neat patterns, refusing the staff's offers, his hands steady, but his heart fracturing with each unanswered glance. "Good morning, Noah," he'd murmur, voice a velvet rumble honed from boardroom negotiations now softened to whispers. "Did you dream of the ocean today, the waves crashing like they do in those videos we watch?" Noah's gaze fixed on an unseen horizon, fingers limp on the tray, the food untouched. Richard persisted, weaving tales of his own childhood adventures, climbing trees in rural England, racing bikes down country lanes, hoping a spark would ignite behind those unblinking eyes. Post-breakfast, the wheelchair glided into the therapy room, a kaleidoscope of color against the mansion's muted elegance, plush bowls in primary hues, interactive mirrors pulsing with lights, aquariums bubbling with tropical fish. Therapists arrived in waves, their voices a symphony of encouragement, picture exchanges, soundboards, animal-assisted sessions with gentle therapy dogs whose tails wagged futilely. Richard perched on the edge of a velvet chaise, forearms on knees, watching Noah's subtle flinches at sudden noises, the fleeting dart of his eyes toward a swinging pendulum. No words emerged, no deliberate gestures, just the void, deeper than any corporate setback. In boardrooms, Richard had crushed rivals with data and dominance. Here, powerlessness clawed at him, a slow erosion of the man who'd once commanded empires. Nights blurred into torment in his master suite. the baby monitor's green glow, a sentinel beside his king-sized bed. Silk sheets twisted around him as he stared at vaulted ceilings adorned with frescoes, mind racing through journals and studies pilfered from digital libraries. Speech therapy logs mocked him. Music sessions yielded nada. Sign language faded into irrelevance. "Why won't you reach back?" he'd whisper to the darkness, fists clenched against the helplessness, a sensation alien to the deal-maker who'd never lost. Visions haunted him. Noah alone in an uncaring world, post-Richard, shuffled into institutions where tenderness was rationed. Fear coiled like smoke in the mansion's drafty corridors, fueling endless searches, midnight calls to experts in soul, shipments of neurofeedback helmets that gathered dust. Yet dawn summoned resolve. Richard narrated the mundane with fervor. "Look, Noah, the roses are blooming crimson today like jewels in the dew." Soft melodies drifted from hidden speakers, Chopin nocturnes, ocean waves crashing. He experimented with textures, fluffy pancakes, crunchy apples, eyes devouring Noah's inert form for a twitch, a swallow, anything. Frustration simmered, a pressure building behind his temples, but he swallowed it, jaw tight. Therapists departed defeated. He thanked them with crisp checks, then redoubled efforts. Patience, once a tool for negotiations, became his crucible, forging a father from the ashes of a mogul. In the mansion's hush, love manifested not in grand gestures, but in unwavering presence amid the silence. One golden afternoon, sunlight slanted through leaded windows into the living room, dust motes dancing like fireflies. Richard placed a plush bear in Noah's palm, its fur whispering against skin. No grip, no glance. He leaned in, voice a low timbre, recounting his late wife's laughter at a seaside picnic, salt wind tangling her hair. Noah's stare wandered. The bear tumbled. Richard retrieved it, chest aching with the familiar void. Sighing, he reclined, eyes tracing ornate cornices, the weight of unspoken paternal longing crushing him like the mansion's marble foundations. Julia Bennett, 27, arrived at the estate's wrought-iron gates with ghosts trailing her steps. Her infant daughter's sudden death, a crib-side tragedy no autopsy explained, had hollowed her, leaving nights of ragged breaths and days blurred by grief's fog. Routine beckoned via the job listing, housemaid at Wakefield Manor. No glamour, just structure amid opulence. Bus rumbling to a halt, she shouldered her modest bag, stepping into the estate's shadowed grandeur, fountains trickling like distant tears, topiaries sculpted into silent sentinels. Richard greeted her in the foyer, his frame imposing yet fatigued, eyes shadowed hollows. "Noah requires gentleness," he stated flatly, touring her through echoing galleries, therapy nooks brimming with apparatus, Noah's suite, a sanctuary of muted blues. Julia absorbed it wordlessly, noting the child's wheelchair-bound form, gaze averted like a bird shying from flight. No pity surfaced, just quiet resolve. She commenced duties, polishing banisters worn smooth by disuse, fluffing linens scented with lavender, moving with deliberate slowness, attuned to Noah's subtle tensions at abrupt sounds. Unlike predecessors' cloying coos or hasty retreats, Julia embodied stillness. Cleaning Noah's playroom, she glided silently, rags whispering over surfaces, never looming. Pausing, she'd settle nearby, folding towels with rhythmic precision, her presence a neutral anchor. Noah's frame didn't rigidify. No aversion flickered. Richard observed from alcoves, brow furrowing at this anomaly. No overt overtures, yet an easing in the air, like fog lifting from the mansion's lake. Subtle shifts accrued. Noah's head no longer swiveled away at her entry, his posture softened near her shadow. One eve, as she aligned silverware in the butler's pantry, Richard ventured, "You've a steady way." Julia met his gaze evenly, sharing fragments of her loss, not for solace, but truth. No tears, just facts etched in quiet strength. Respect kindled in him, thawing the frost of isolation. Humming drifted one tranquil afternoon, Julia folding linens by mullioned windows, Noah gazing outward. A wordless lullaby, soft as breath. Richard froze in the archway. Noah's head canted imperceptibly toward the melody, fingers quivering. Julia persisted, oblivious or intentional, the sound weaving through the room's hush. To Richard, it was seismic, a crack in the edifice of silence. Julia's vigilance sharpened on Noah's nuances, a head tilt at faucet drips, fingers stirring at rainfall patter. Water's allure emerged in the estate's rear gardens, where emerald lawns swept toward a crystalline pool, its surface rippling under filtered cascades. Wheeling Noah there, she halted, his spine straightened, lips curving faintly at the liquid symphony. "Fancy that," she breathed, voice feather-light. Daily pilgrimages ensued post-meals, shaded vigils by the water's edge, Noah's blinks slowing, hands tracing air currents, mimicking waves. Escalation whispered. A hand-dip splash elicited Noah's swiftest swivel yet. Tap-taps on pool coping drew rhythmic breaths. Post-excursion, a novel hum escaped Noah, raw, unbidden. Julia catalogued it privately, pondering water's therapeutic embrace for sensory souls. Caution tempered zeal. Richard's history of dashed hopes loomed, yet conviction stirred. She broached it in his oak-paneled study, voice measured. The water, it unlocks him. Hands freer, gaze sharper. Richard pondered, then nodded. Threesome ventured poolside. Julia's splashes mirrored Noah's prior raptures. Richard witnessed, the micro-smile, fluid fingers, and hope flickered, fragile as dawn. Sweltering dusk cloaked the gardens when Julia donned Noah's flotation vest, straps cinched with maternal precision. Edging into shallows, arm encircling his torso, she murmured, "Easy now." Initial rigidity yielded to melt. Shoulders eased, hands parted ripples. Then a giggle, crystalline, piercing the twilight. Julia's pulse thundered, tears pricked as Noah's digits danced surfaces, face alight with nascent joy. Richard, drawn by instinct, crested the terrace. The tableau arrested him. Sun buoyant, Julia steadfast. Another laugh pealed, knees buckled. He knelt poolside, throat constricting. Vulnerability surged, years dam breached by this elemental rite. Noah's head pivoted, eyes locked paternal. "Daddy!" exhaled, soft as mist. Richard crumpled, sobs racking, hands framing the miracle. Julia held steady, their shared gaze affirming the epical fracture. Touch tentative, father's palm to son's, no recoil. Gratitude rasped, "Thank you." Safety, not strategy, had unlocked the vault. Poolside metamorphosed into sanctum. Mornings heralded Noah's directional tugs, glee bubbling as waters neared. Toys bobbed, yellow duck paramount, clutched with fervor. Books unfurled poolside, pages caressed amid recitations, gestures bloomed into intent. Pinnacle, duck proffered, Noah articulated, duck, echoed by Julia, affirmed by nod. Richard knelt, voice thick, duck. Vocabulary tentatively flowered. Gestures, coos, eye locks, scripting dialogue. Collaborative notebook chronicled milestones. Paints smeared in azure joy, bubbles pursued with glee. Sensory bridges erected, Richard immersed, drying toys, voicing tales, team forged in aqueous grace. Amid archival purge in Richard's sanctum, Julia unearthed a locked drawer. Curiosity pried, Noah medical history. Pages chilled, neurologists' scrawls, emotional containment, sedatives for compliance, restraints invoked, over-medication's blueprint, stimuli starved. Digital trails unveiled scandals, complaints, probes evaded. Confrontation brewed Eve's hush, folder thrust forth, horrors recited. Richard blanched, fists clenched. How? Betrayal's venom coursed, Blind faith complicit. Alliance crystallized. Dossiers amassed. Litigators engaged. Scribes alerted. Justice's slow burn ignited. Shielding kin yet unborn. Noah's Ark persisted unhindered. Ball. Reed ventured. Crayon strokes evoked. Water. Sketch unveiled. Triad clasped. It's us. Hugs tender. Lexicon sparse but profound. Scandal swelled. Verdict damned the quack. License revoked. Reparations decreed. Mansion pulsed anew. Studio birthed. Walls awash in Noah's hues. Pool blue. Exalted. Julia integral. Song synced. Paints shared. Richard doorway sentinel. Joy reclaiming vaults. Years distilled resilience. Auditorium gleamed. Noah, teen poised in cerulean suit, clasped Julia's hand stageward. Acclaim thundered. Announcer proclaimed, Julia Bennett, adoptive mother. Embrace seismic. Noah's whisper. My light started at the pool. Speech succinct. Ovation cataclysmic. Reception swirled. Trio unassailable. Family alchemized from ashes. Homeward, medal nestled by triad sketch. Goodnight, Mom, sealed serenade. Mansion, once sepulchre, brimmed. Love's quiet tide, eternal.